Hey everybody, Danielle Egnew here. Welcome to inPsight Radio, where you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. It is so great to be with you guys this week. I love this podcast. I love coming in to share things with you weekly. You know, I'm a chatter. I know that's probably not super duper surprising to anybody, yet I love to share and I love to chat. And in this instance, gang, I am so excited to bring this podcast to you today because today we are talking about two of my favorite subjects. We are talking about what we can look forward to in world changes, global changes, as far as geothermal events, as far as incredible weird weather. Why do I love to talk about this? Well, partly because I actually watch the Sci-Fi Channel and I love just cheesy, weird shows like Sharknado. Have you ever seen Sharknado? Oh, gang, it's a POS. It is a serious POS. Sharknado is probably something that no one ever needs to see. However, if you ever just want a mindless, I say this with loving, awesome respect for my C-grade sci-fi originals, because the bottom line is I love movies about sharks flying out of tornadoes. And why do I love weird stuff like that? I mean, my world is weird enough, gang, without actually seeing tornadoes spitting sharks over the mainland. That's literally what Sharknado is about on Sci-Fi. Well, I love stuff like that because what I get a chance to witness is so weird anyway. I mean, it is completely weird when I'm looking at this world weather. And why do I want to share this with you? Well, it's certainly not out of a need to be histrionic about anything. That's not where I come from. As a person who gets the opportunity to experience future events and talk to all kinds of different life out there, my goal is not to freak everybody out. That's not actually why I'm on this planet. However, I tell you what, my native Montanan kicks in here. If I knew that a storm was coming over the divide and I needed to let some of my folks down the road know. So if they're planning to go on any trips or they're planning to go over any continental area or mountain pass, they have an educated idea of the storm that's coming that I've actually driven through. So my whole point in sharing this information is quite honestly to combat this weird, freaky denial out there in the world that there's nothing to see here with the Earth. It's normal. We go through these cycles all the time. Okay, well, climate change might be real, but it's really not that bad. And honestly, we're making a bigger deal out of this than we need to. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're not. Okay? And I tell you the part that I have a hard time with as someone who sees what I see and experiences what I experience. What I have a hard time with is just blanket denial. Okay? That drives me nuts. And it drives me nuts because we cannot address an issue if we're pretending like it's not there. And right now, it's really, really in vogue to make sure you don't over-dramatize weather events. And I can understand why, because there's a lot of, websites out there and clickbait different articles online that have really ridiculous headlines, like world designed to drown in next 2 years thanks to global warming. And thanks to these flippin' yahoos, the real truth of what we've got to look at in the world is buried by sensationalist, I'm hooked up to Google AdSense, and every time you click on my headline, I make 5 cents. Ridiculous clickbait. So here's the deal, gang. We are in some pretty Old West territory with our weather. And at the beginning of the year here in Montana, in January, I did a January predictions forum. And I know. I've been telling you, I've been meaning to get this forum up there, and I will. This is a big thing I need to do because this was recorded in January. The file has a date timestamp of January of this year. And in this forum, all of this information was coming through about how our money was going to change this year, how this year we were going to see the really beginning of the freakola, sci-fi, apocalyptic, wacko weather. There was all kinds of stuff in this particular predictive element. And it's one of those weird things. I've been meaning to get it up online, and just life has been happening, and there is that. Sure. What I want to share with everybody is that in the next 5 years, we are going to watch the world dramatically change, including our coastlines in the United States. And there are NASA models right now that are predicting changes in our weather, in our ocean levels specifically, over the next 25 years. Yet I'm telling you, gang, every year, what I'm looking at is this is not a steady increase. I believe this year, at the top of the year, NASA indicated that we were going to have a 3 millimeter rise in ocean levels per year. Now, most of us hear 3 millimeters and we're like, whatever, that's not even like, what even is a millimeter, says the people in America. Come on, be honest. Yet, we listen to this and we're like, a millimeter? What even is that? It's such a tiny amount. Really, it's like 3 pencil lead widths. So we tend to think, well, that's not a, big deal. What's the big deal with that? Well, the big deal with that is it's not accurate. We are seeing compounded sea level raises, and to the point where people are talking in centimeters now, to the point where people are going, actually, it's not going to happen that much per year. And the fascinating thing about this compounded sea level raise is this is something that I have been seeing for the last 8 years. And many other people in my field have too. Look, I'm not trying to claim some giant omnipotence here. There's many people who do what I do in terms of evaluating temporal events, or what we like to call future events, and saying, hey, this is going to be a lot of water coming in. And I've been rather sparing in regards to talking about this because, quite frankly, gang, people just don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. And whenever we try to talk to humanity about something that's going to frighten them, what we get is this psychotic snapback of negativity where people are just wigging out. And then you have all the reposts of every scientific journal that said this was going to be incremental, and science says this and science says that. And I love science. I love science, gang. Those of you that have followed my work over the last 15 years know that I am a huge science buff. I love how things are put together. I think science helps us explain a tremendous amount of spiritual physics out there, as well as events that the Bible likes to call cataclysmic. I mean, we can look at science and say, well, that's actually a direct relation to the heating and cooling of the planet. There we go. There's Revelation. Ta-da. That being said, we also tend to hide in our science to make us feel better. True story. So here's the deal. Here's what we're looking at in the next 5 years. We are sitting on a situation where we are going to have dramatic sea level rises. I mean, and part of this is because of the amount of the cooling and heating of the earth and the amount of water that's dropping everywhere. It's not just the melting of Antarctic glaciers and the glaciers in Greenland. The Greenland glacier right now is melting like a fiend. And that is dramatically affecting the tidal, the tidal, what do you want to call it, currents on the planet. The tidal currents of the planet, when they heat up, stop working like a conveyor belt because you need the cold water to come in from the north, and it pushes the hot water from the south, and it creates this conveyor belt. Well, if the water heats up north, or if the water loses its salinity up north, then the current doesn't run as well. When the current doesn't run as well, then we do not circulate really food through the ocean, and we lose our corals. And once we lose our corals, we start losing what creates oxygenation in the ocean. So then fish start starving and dying, and then people can't catch the fish, and blah, 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 right? And you say these things, and people get mad at you. For this is science, okay? I'm talking science right now. And you speak the science to people, and they get furious. And they say, why are you trying to scare people? You know, you're a psychic. That's going to freak people out. I'm sitting here going, hello. I would really like to know if my fish supply is going to be cut in half because I eat fish. So isn't it kind to let people know that, hey, gang, we need to be making some smart choices with how we raise our food coming up here because our beautiful planet that's normally provided us with everything we need is going through partly a natural cycle of heating and cooling, and that's part of what the Earth does. And really, for the last, 10,000 years, we've been living in a bit of the Earth's Goldilocks zone overall in climatary allocation. And then you add on top of that we just basically screwed with the climate horribly. So we've ushered in a more severe changeover of a natural cycle much faster. That's what's going on, okay? And I mean, you look at the water that's been added, the Sahara Desert this year had 15 inches of snowfall in the part of the Sahara that's in Algeria. You know, snow fell for the first time in Florida in 30 years. And when you say these things, then you receive the snapback of people online that are like, well, you know, that's just a cycle. Well, you know, this just happens. Yes, it does just happen, except for the fact that we are in a critical cycle. And we need to wake up and recognize that. We are in a critical cycle, everybody. Guess what? Critical cycle. So please conserve your water. Please grow some gardens in your backyard and can some food. And no, that's not a histrionic comment. That is a courtesy announcement to the earth is going into a change. And it is up to us to navigate that change responsibly rather than, come on, USA, we love to sit on our butt and go to the grocery store and watch our Netflix and then order a pizza and the rest of the world be damned. I mean, that is the generalized United States consciousness right now. And it's not because we in the United States don't love the rest of the world. It's because generationally we've been groomed to ignore the rest of the world and spend money. Okay, so if you're listening to this podcast from outside of the U.S., we are such a good people. We love everybody. We are coming out of an self-obsessed culture over here to note that we are part of the rest of the world. And we are a very young culture. This country's only been here, like 300-400 years tops? I mean, Lord, we're really new. So we're still trying to get the how to play well with others part down. Okay, so what has this got to do with the price of rice in China, as they say? Well, the price of rice in China is going to be affected too because the United States provides food for the rest of the world. I mean, massive amounts of food. And I wasn't even aware of this, actually, until I did some studies about how the United States trade works. And of course, I'm in Montana. We're in an agricultural state. And we sell most of the wheat that comes out of Montana to China. Most of it goes to China. Now, there's a lot of countries that are backing off on buying United States agricultural products because, you know, we're still working off that old world imbalanced masculine time frame that wanted to go payola and take the easy way out with everybody, which means that we've got a lot of Monsanto wheat, and that's banned in Europe. It's banned over in China. It's banned in the rest of the world that grew a brain cell and said, wow, let's not eat genetically modified food because it's super bad for you. But hey, America, it's 5 cents cheaper. And don't you want to save 5 cents so you can buy an extra pair of Nikes and a brand new iPhone? And I say that as the person who just upgraded my iPhone. So, hey, hypocrite here. However, I am willing to pay a little more for my food and budget elsewhere. So there you go. And just as a sidebar too, this is a total sidebar. However, look at our consumerist addictions we have in the United States, and then look at our food supply. Look at the iPhone. I love my iPhone. However, I really loved my iPhone 6, gang. I loved my iPhone 6. And then the iPhone forced an update on me. And because I'm not stupid. I wasn't going to update that iPhone because the minute you do, then they don't work anymore, right? And by God, it forced an update, and then the phone just simply wouldn't function. So I'm trying to receive client calls from all over the world, and the calls are dropping, and I can't even actually physically answer the phone anymore because the phone just wouldn't work. Tried to restore it to factory settings, the phone still wouldn't work. So look how we are groomed in America every 2 to 4 years to be corralled into buying something more expensive. And yeah, my wife got the iPhone 8. I just went ahead and went into the 10 just because I thought, you know what? Hopefully this stupid thing will last me 5 years this time instead of, 4. And we'll see if I can get one more year out of it if it's newer. However, this is how we've been groomed as a culture. And I'm really aware of it. And I get mad when I get involved. And I'm like, I'm going to go to an Android. But I just don't because I'm lazy. There you go. Okay. So I'm owning my own Americanism here as a demonstration of why in this country we sit back and not that we're not concerned with global changes, not that we don't want to help out, not that we aren't completely freaked out by the fact that our sea levels are going to dramatically rise in 5 years and change coastlines in Florida and in California and in Louisiana in America. I mean, all of these low-lying places are going to dramatically suffer. I mean, when you look at what we've got to look at, and then we factor in how we've been raised as a culture that, somebody else will take care of that. Someone else will take care of that. And I'll just go get my new iPhone. I mean, I'm making a dramatization here, gang. Yeah, come on. Underneath of it all, we struggle with this in America. And it takes something like, the Twin Towers falling down or something just really big to get our attention. And pretty soon we're like, oh my God, that's terrible. Let's band together as a country. And then some Yahoo wacko always takes that banding together over for a political agenda and turns it into some big marketing device like, we have to watch out for the brown-skinned people, or, the Twin Towers fell down, let's close all our borders because secretly I want to keep all the money in America. I mean, it goes down to consumerism here. So it's important to point that out because you can't talk about, at least in the United States, you can't talk about ignoring global changes if you don't talk about the culture that really wants to ignore the global changes. And again, obviously, gang, this country, our country, I love America. I love being an American. I love being a Montanan. It's kind of like, if you're from Texas, you're a Texan first, then you're an American. If you're Montanan, you're a Montanan first, and then you're an American. And I completely love my country. Yet I am not in denial about areas in which we can grow sociologically in our country. And I'm really doing my best to do my part, both as a human being and also with these podcasts, to talk about where we've started in consciousness and where we can go. Because being mindful through the consumerist convenience modality is how America, we as a country, are going to save our butts in the next 15 years. So that's what that whole tirade was about. It was not about the iPhone. It was about where we come from in consciousness, okay? And again, I know many, many, many wonderful people that are working towards saving the planet here in the United States. Many communities, many green communities. My wife is fanatical about not bringing home those plastic garbage bags and asking for paper garbage bags or bringing our own garbage bags, grocery bags. They turn into garbage bags when we go to the grocery store. My wife is fanatical about that. My wife is fanatical about using glass water bottles because really we don't even have enough glass in the landfills right now. When you do get glass in the landfills, it crunches down and it ends up oxygenating the soil as the landfills decompose and all that methane is released. The glass maintains little airways for the methane to be released. And hopefully the methane is being captured because we put too much methane in the air and then we get global warming. See how that works? We capture the methane and we can at least try to burn the fuel in a more productive way that filters off the emissions from the methane. So it's a great big domino effect, you guys. But really, what does this mean for our planet? Well, food is going to be a great big issue because, as I was saying earlier, the United States provides a majority of food to other parts of the world. I mean, the entire middle part of the USA used to be an ocean bed. So it is super fertile farmland. Those Great Plains are growing corn and wheat, and that is going to all parts beyond. And we're exporting a majority of that food. Really, California, the state of California, my good old Cali, California has literally had a yield or an uptake of, they provide 80%. California, are you ready for this? The one state of California provides 80% of the United States' produce comes out of California. Think about that a minute. And that state has been just completely hammered. It's been hammered with droughts. It's been hammered. It's going to be hammered with flooding. Thankfully, in-state in California is where a majority of our food crops come from. But I want you to start dialing this in your brains, gang, because what is 2018's year of transformation all about? It's about transforming our consciousness. And we cannot transform our consciousness if we don't just, pull the share from Moonstruck and smack ourselves in the face twice and just yell snap out of it to ourselves. It's not being unkind. It's not being non-metaphysical. It's not falling out of love consciousness. It's being flippin' aware, okay? And we do live in a three-dimensional environment. We have chosen a body to be stewards of a planet that exists in the third dimension, where things like weather patterns do create a semblance of cause and effect when we are looking at how we apply our consciousness. So this is why it's super important that we talk about this stuff. Honestly, you look at Cape Town, gang. Cape Town, South Africa. Cape Town, South Africa. Cape Town in South Africa is running out of water. Okay, and this is another thing that came through the January predictive elements that I passed on in the live forum, was that this was going to be a crunch time for water this year. We were either going to be flooded and with polluted drinking water that we couldn't do anything with, or we were going to be droughted out. And Cape Town is down to the 0 hour. I mean, we've been reading about this for a year. Oh, Cape Town's going to run out of water. Well, gee, that's in Cape Town. Guess what, people? That's an analogy. Why do we think on the earth that we have such a globally connected society right now? What is the lesson of that? Is the lesson of that to be able to open up Facebook and say, oh, bummer for people in Cape Town, they're running out of water? Or is the overarching consciousness lesson the following? Hey, gang, you as a human species are living on the planet during a time that has never existed before, where the global consciousness of events can be shared with the click of an iPhone, a click of a droid, a click of a YouTube video. We can share information in an unprecedented way right now. And this is exceptionally important, gang, to remember that we are alive on this planet to learn from other parts of the planet. We don't have to go through the old world lessons of waiting 1,000 years for a technology to get to our section of the world through the oceans and through application, through cultural uplifting. We can look online now and find out what's going on. So does that mean that we should histrionically knee-jerk at every single clickbait headline? Absolutely not. Yet what it does mean is when we have very well documented news stories, like water running out in Cape Town. Gang, that is an analogy. Cape Town is not the only area that's going to be water compromised. I mean, even in my hometown of Billings, Montana, here in Billings, we live in what's called a banana belt. It's a very fertile valley. And on one side of the valley, we've got the Yellowstone River. The great and mighty undammed Yellowstone River is just flowing through. And we're an agricultural state. So where we are in Billings, our singular water supply, okay, our only water supply in Billings is this gorgeous, amazing river. However, you would think the Yellowstone would be this pristine, beautiful river because it comes out of Yellowstone Park. It originates in Yellowstone Park. Well, obviously, it's pristine up the way. By the time it gets down to Billings, it's gray and muddy and full of crap because Billings is in the central part of the state and it's picked up every single farm runoff from, obviously the western border of the state down. So we've got a lot of toxins that run in the Yellowstone. So our water plant here in Billings has devised a way to grab that water and let it sit in holding ponds and let the flora and fauna, the natural bacteria, eat out a lot of the garbage. And then we kind of naturally filter it. So by the time we pass it to we in town, it's pretty good drinking water. Regrettably, it's got what other processed drinking water in the United States has. It's got ammonias, it's got chlorines, it's got everything that the government deems that you have to put in the water, which actually kills the natural nutrients in the water. And why is this important? Why am I talking about water? Because we can do without certain kinds of foods if we can stay hydrated. If we run out of drinking water, then it doesn't matter how much food we've got around us. We're pretty much sunk. So why'd I bring up Billings water? Well, because you would think on paper, when you look at my city on Google Earth, you're like, wow, they've got this great big river that runs by them. They've got all this water. Actually, we had a local business that was just fined for dumping 56 times into the Yellowstone River incredibly toxic chemicals, just raw chemicals, just dumping them on there. And since the EPA has been all but eliminated with our current presidential administration, we've got my city actually made the map before the EPA was eliminated. Billings, Montana made the map as one of the 3 most toxic cities in the United States. Then the EPA came along and cleaned it up because we've got 3 oil refineries that also sit in this very sacred, fertile valley on the far ends of the valley. So what has this got to do with anything? Gang, it has to do with just because something looks gorgeous on paper. Just because you can look at Google Earth and see a water source does not mean it's going to be viable. It means that we are going to be asked, and we have been being asked, to take measures to deal responsibly with our water. And it's really fascinating. There are a lot of city ordinances that do not allow people to actually collect rain barrels of drinking water, because bugs can lay eggs in it if people don't do it properly. Yet I'll tell you what, go ahead and collect your own water and, use it somehow. Because until our skies become so polluted that we can't collect the water, this is going to come in handy for watering gardens, because our food production is going to be affected by our climate issues. And I know I'm sounding like doom and gloom Donna today. Yet, gang, this is not coming from a place of doom and gloom. This information is coming to you today through the angelic ticker tape that is here to help us maintain through a difficult portion of our natural global cycle that we have absolutely poured just gallons of gasoline on that fire and made it into a wild, raging problem. So the angels are actually attempting to assist us with discernment, with how to actually get our heads in the game, with how to not starve and die. I mean, these are big issues coming up. And, again, we in the United States are like, no way. That could never happen here. Gang, it's happening here. It's happening. Look at Flint, Michigan. Flint. Crappy water. We've been looking at this the whole time and we just don't want to see it. And our current administration in Washington is here to play a role in consciousness, showing us what happens when we just pretend something doesn't exist. We may choose that modality or we may not choose that modality. So I'm not blaming Washington. I'm saying, wow, thanks for the massive display of denial here so we can get on board and make better choices for ourselves. When you look at the ocean levels rising, really, the next 5 years are going to be huge. We're going to see coastline levels affected in 5 years. And I'm not talking just a little bit like, oh, gee, boy, the tide's coming a little more. We're talking in low-lying areas, again, like Florida, like Galveston, Texas, gang. Come on. Like Louisiana. There's a lot of spots that are really going to suffer. And I'm not even talking about other places on the globe that are suffering due to all of this. I'm just talking about here in the United States. I mean, there are many places on the globe that have very low-lying, hardly any sea level areas. Like, look at Fiji. There are so many islands out there that I think their sea level, the highest point on the island is maybe, 50 feet. So we're talking whole cultures of people losing coastlines and losing their homes. When you're talking about a mile-wide island and the sea levels rising on that mile-wide island, you're talking losing a lot of your home. So again, we in the United States, especially people who live inland, are like, well, okay, the oceans are going to raise. Yet we need to look at this on a different level, because what happens when we lose so much coastline? We're also losing a lot of plant life, gang. And that plant life puts a lot of oxygen into the air. So we're losing oxygen, okay? We're not just losing forested areas, we're losing the ability to breathe to a degree. Now, obviously, it's not going to wipe out all the oxygen on the earth, but I want you to think about that, because whenever somebody says, well, what's a little bit of coastline in Fiji got to do with me? Well, how about all those giant deciduous leaf plants down there in the tropical arenas that flow with oxygen and put all this beautiful oxygen in the air, and then our tidal currents come and blow that oxygen up to the northern part of the hemisphere of the earth, except for our tidal currents are wearing out also, so they're not running nearly as strong and our corals are suffering. So we are losing oxygen opportunities on the planet Earth. So I'd like to say to the folks who want to eliminate the EPA and whatnot, I understand that's a consciousness issue that we're going through right now. I totally get it. Yet at the same time, the human part of me wants to say, you do realize we all breathe, right? And I understand in your mind, you're, quote, saving jobs because those folks are putting money in your pocket in those industries. Yet you can't go to work if you can't breathe. Just saying. That gets rough. So our scientific community has been saying that literally by 2100, okay, which is not that far off, okay, when we look at where we're at right now in the time span of where we're at. That's like 80 some odd years. They are estimating that the ocean levels in 80 some years are estimated to be twice as high as they thought they would be. So we're talking 26 inches of coastline raise. That's 2 feet, gang. 2 feet. The ocean's raising 2 feet all over the world by 2100. Well, I want to tell you something. By 2100, we're going to be looking more at 40 inches. We're going to be looking at a lot more water than we think in 80 years, unless we really take some massive steps right now to do what we can. And we can't stop. We cannot stop the global transitional issues that are in store for us in the next 10 to 15 years. I mean, we're already invested in those. We brought those on 20 years ago. Okay, we're now seeing the effects. We can't stop it in its tracks. What we can do is try to work harder at our own ability to, well, personally grow food for ourselves and to share with our communities. Community gardens are awesome. Do your best to see if you can recycle water or do what you can with water, because even our communities in Billings, if we were to lose access to the Yellowstone River, this town has, including its surrounding areas, Billings is servicing probably 120,000 people. Okay, we're not the biggest city in the world. We are the largest city in our area, in Montana, actually. And because there's no people out here, which is one of the reasons I live here. It's wonderful. There's lots of nature and you can hear God. And I love people too. Yet it's nice to get away if you're wired like I am. And if Billings, Montana, just to give you an example, with only 20 to 30,000 people drawing off of our water pipes, because there's all kinds of people who live here, but a lot of folks draw off wells and creeks and all kinds of things. Yet for those 1,000 people or 30 drawing off the Yellowstone River, if something happened to that water source, to that river, are you ready for this? A city of Billings with 120,000 to 130,000 people drawing off of that, only has one reservoir here. We have one emergency reservoir that if everybody in Billings had to draw off that reservoir, it would be drained in 12 hours. I want you to think about that a minute, because this is the reality of the world we're living in. It is important wherever you live, unless you actually have a well that's coming off of a deep aquifer and you don't need to worry about this kind of stuff, in which case, rock on. That's awesome. Hopefully nobody's fracking in your area and you will be able to have an incredible water source. That's amazing. And you can help your neighbors out if their water source is jeopardized. Over the next 5 years, we're going to see tremendous problems with water. You know, and communities like mine here in Billings are going to suffer too, because again, we draw our water off of a giant river that is, everything else is being washed into that river. So we do not have the capabilities, at least in our little water plant, which is pretty cutting edge for water. We don't have the capabilities to screen out all kinds of toxins that could come our way. And if that happens, we have 12 hours of water. Now, I realize this is sounding like a sci-fi show, okay? But gang, this is just please hear me. This is what's actually going on. And this is important to note. It's not to scare you. It's to say, hey, I need to pass this on. It's my duty as somebody who sees future events to pass this on. I mean, and there are certain future events that are fairly imminent that don't change all that much. And planetary events are one of them. We're also going to see an upswing in geothermal events, because think about the physics of this, the science of this. And again, here I'm talking about not hiding in science, but science is also a helpful tool for us if we balance our observation of its data. If you look at geothermal activity, gang, okay, what you have is you have an incredible cause and effect machine going on with the way that the world blows in terms of volcanic action. And if you take, well, let me back this up. I want you to think about the crust on the earth as thin as it actually is. And I am certainly not a geophysicist, yet I do have the opportunity to shoot energy into the earth and feel densities. It's really fun. It's weird. Like when I go to Yellowstone Park, I drive my wife crazy going, oh my God, did you know that this road is built on a thinner spot in the crust? She's like, I don't even want to know that. Why are you even telling me that? I'm like, because it's super cool. Come on. I got to share this with somebody. So what I'm telling you is that when I feel, at least in my area, in Montana, when I feel into the crust of the earth, and then I feel all the way around the earth, the crust that we live on, gang, okay, the place we live on at the top of the planet, the surface of the planet, that is about as thick in terms of the density of the whole earth, is going to freak you out, as if you took a Dairy Queen cone and you dipped it in chocolate. That little thin coating, that's what we're living on. We're living on the Dairy Queen coating on that cone. That's where we're living. So with this knowledge, it's important to recognize that the rest of the ice cream inside, what happens? What happens when you go outside with your Dairy Queen cone and it's hot? And it's all completely dipped in chocolate, and you haven't even bit into it yet because you're admiring the little curlicue on the top. Now I want ice cream. Oh man. And you're looking at that. What happens when it's hot outside? Well, first, the Dairy Queen coating begins to sweat. So there's a lot of condensation on the Dairy Queen coating. And then all of a sudden, all of this ice cream starts to run out from underneath of that chocolate covering and drip all over the cone. So obviously the heat is melting the ice cream underneath. Now, what I'm talking about here is the movement of what's underneath the crust, because what happens when some of that movement or some of that ice cream melts out, then you're looking at your perfect, beautiful Dairy Queen cone and it starts to tip to one side. Have you ever had that happen? That's just thrilling. Then you're like panicking, you're biting off the top, you're trying to suck out the ice cream. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my whole cone. This is terrible. I want you to think about the earth like a Dairy Queen cone. And when we are losing the water that's been held in water weight up in a glacier in Greenland, or balanced or held in water weight down in Antarctica, okay, I want you to think about this a minute. Those are two huge glaciers at the top of the world and at the bottom of the world that are providing a weighted counterbalance in a weird way, okay, combined with other glaciers, obviously, that keep the crust of the earth overall from shifting around because it's just sliding around on hot ice cream in the center. So what happens when we eliminate some of those counterbalances, or maybe don't even eliminate them perfectly at the same time, like more of the Greenland glacier melts than the Antarctic glacier? Well, we're actually changing the weight distribution of our Dairy Queen coating, okay? And then not only are we changing that weight distribution, we're taking that weight that was centrally located on the top and the bottom of our Dairy Queen coating, and we're completely moving it all over the rest of the globe by entering water all over the place. And now we're not even spreading that water in an even keel way. I mean, it is being spread because you obviously, if you add water in the top, the bottom is going to raise too. But we've also got temperature differentials happening with all of that. So we're adding more overall weight to the earth, okay, to the Dairy Queen coating that was normally just frozen in certain areas. And all of a sudden, that weight is being distributed all over the cone. Well, if you take the Dairy Queen cone on your melty ice cream and you squeeze it, what happens? Well, it cracks. And what happens if you do that? Well, I don't recommend it. It's gross. It's going to get your hand dirty. But all of that ice cream is going to shoot out the bottom of the cone. All right. So when we have plate displacement, which is what happens when we add a lot of weight onto the globe, we're squishing the earth. And what happens when you squish the earth? Well, the ice cream's got to come out somewhere. And because it's round and it's not a Dairy Queen cone, where does that pressure come out? It comes out through earthquakes. It comes out through volcanoes because it's got to come out somewhere. We're now adding more weight overall to the surface of the planet, and that's going to squeeze the planet, which means that overall we're going to have more geothermal activity. Now, this is a really, really, really basic overview of geothermal physics, and I'm sure probably actual geologists and geothermal physicians are out there laughing at my description, but come on, man, we got to try to break this down to be a little understandable for people. So what we're going to be seeing is a lot more really heavy duty volcanoes erupting that we're, quote, not expecting. Well, we should be expecting them because we're squeezing the earth with more distributed cubic tonnages of water, especially when we're talking about adding 2 feet in, they're saying in 80 years, I'm saying we're probably looking at 20 years for that 2 feet, if even that. The next 5 years, we're going to be adding inches to those coastlines. So this is going to make a big deal. We're going to have a lot more geothermal activity. Right now, of course, Hawaii is blowing off, and it's not unusual. That's what the Hawaiian Islands do. In fact, the angelic realm calls the state of Hawaii, they call that area of the world the womb of the earth. They also refer to areas of Japan that way, and weirdly, they refer to Yellowstone Park that way. And Yellowstone Park contains over 40% of the world's geothermal activity. So here I'm living, we're moving up to Bozeman pretty soon this summer, which is right outside of Yellowstone Park. And I'm thinking, oh man, if the earth gets squeezed like an orange and Yellowstone pops, well, if I quit putting up any sort of podcast, you guys are going to know Yellowstone Blue, and we're right next door. So it was great knowing everybody, and I'll catch you on the other side. How's that? So this is why it's important to make note of the fact that we are going to be seeing more geothermal activity. These large eruptions, and so far we've just been seeing a lot of magma up in Hawaii, which is devastating for the people there, yet the larger eruptions with ash cloud, that's when we've got to watch out for that blots out sun. And we already are having ocean bottoms that are dying because we've got massive floating, huge things of trash, like 3 times the size of France out there and way out there in the Pacific. And that is prohibiting sunlight from getting into the water. So the photosynthetic process that happens with the marine life is not happening. There are giant areas of the ocean beds that are just dying. And again, gang, we're talking oxygen. We get a lot of oxygen from the ocean. So, again, this is not to scare everybody. It's to say, what do we do about this? Well, this is the reality of what we're looking at. It doesn't mean we're all going to die in a flaming sci-fi C-grade movie death. It means that we can prohibit how we die off as a species by being smart right now. Honest to God, your use of plastic matters. It matters, okay, America? It matters every day. Our use, like turning off the water when you are using, like when you're brushing your teeth, turn off the water. When you're not actually using the water. I got into that habit living in LA where you conserve water. It is important that we all do our part, gang, because we are a global consciousness at this point. And when we look at Cape Town and we look at Flint, that can easily be Billings, Montana. If we get too much sulfur that blows out of the park into the Yellowstone River, guess what? Billings is sunk, gang, and so are countless cities that depend on that river. So this is what I'm saying. We've got a lot of big geothermal activity and weirdo weather coming up in this next really 2-year period. And then by the time we spread out to 5 years, it gets really crazy. I mean, we've even seen early springs, like in Georgia, for instance, early springs that came on and all the peaches came up and all the blueberries started coming out, and then they all froze because of our weird weather. So really 80% of the blueberry crop in March took a dive in Georgia You know what that's going to do to our fruit prices? Oh my God, those poor growers. They're like, what the hell just happened here? So again, when you're talking about the United States providing food for the nation and providing food for the world, this drives up food prices. And then people get really desperate. I mean, and it's affecting fires. 2.1 million acres burned across the U.S. Just so far. I mean, this is weird, and that's like 6 times the decade average last year. I mean, that's like insane because of the fires that are burning, and we don't have these incredible releases for our weather. 486 tornadoes since the beginning of the year, and that's really almost a record of tornadoes. And I believe, I don't know if this was this year or the end of last year. I want to say it's the beginning of this year in February, up in the northeast of the United States. I'm like 99% confident this was this year. There was a tornado in the northeast that came out of nowhere. And people were sitting outside in 60-degree weather, and they were having barbecues in the backyard. And then this weird weather whipped up and literally ripped off the front of the house. I mean, this is sci-fi movie stuff. And one of the predictive elements that came through in my January forum was all about freak show, biblical proportion. No way, this only happens on sci-fi weather. Wait until we get into June, July, August, gang. We're going to see hail in this country. That is just frightening. Please be wary of our thunderstorms because of the way that our planetary electromagnetic relay is playing out with all this weather. Our cloud base is sitting closer to the Earth. So here in Montana, we have rager lightning storms, and I'm really electromagnetic sensitive, so this gets crazy. But these big lightning storms, gang, please be careful because they are so powerful now because the cloud ceiling is sitting so much lower. There's still the same big charges of lightning, yet they're bigger because of the electrostatic buildup in the atmosphere, and the clouds are lower. So the electrostatic charges coming off of this lightning is dangerous. I mean, I can feel it through the window, some of these lightning storms. And obviously there's a bolt of lightning that's happening, off in the distance, and you at least have like 2 seconds before the crack of, like the deafening, frightening crack of thunder. Yet I can feel that energy. So again, I'm not here to frighten you. I am here to tell you this is the reality of where we're at. The angelic realm wants humanity to know, hey guys, this is really happening, and you can band together. And some of the things that we can do to try to combat what we've seen, including weirdo tornadoes in the Northeast that have not even been documented in that part of the country since the 1600s, part of what we can do is put love out into the ethers. And what does that mean? Well, when we do healing work on the body, when we meditate for the portions of love, it actually changes the resonation and the thickness of the ethereal structure of the planet. That's a true thing. When we sit for 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, start your day thinking about what you love in your life. And I have a lot of issues with some of the metaphysical community who wants to have folks wake up in the first part of the day and manifest. And hey, if that's your routine, rock on, you go for it. I would offer a different perspective in that waking up in the first few hours of the day, this is where we set our intention for the rest of how our chi is going to run in that day. And so part of this show is also about how love affects the body. How does love affect the body, and how does it actually physically heal the body? Well, the resonation of love is a measurable vibration scientifically. When people love on one another, their electromagnetic field around the body actually changes. You can see this with scientific equipment. And because we do live in this three-dimensional environment that I've been banging the gong of this whole entire hour practically, when we put out the love vibration, it dramatically affects the electromagnetic environment in which we are living. Well, how does that affect weather? Okay, and I've talked about this on the podcast before. Weather is highly electromagnetically sensitive. And our ionosphere, which wraps the Earth in an electromagnetic net, our ionosphere passes around energy that causes changes in high wind currents, which changes temperature, which changes air currents, which changes weather patterns, and things like hurricanes and whatnot are affected by our upper atmosphere. So our upper atmosphere primarily is, what is it affected by? Electromagnetic energy. What puts out electromagnetic energy? Human beings. How many of us are on the planet? 8 billion, and that's not even counting the folks that we couldn't find for the census. 8 billion, at least 8 billion electromagnetic generators on the planet of Earth exist. We are the largest planar array. Human beings are the largest planar array existing on the planet, and we all put out an electromagnetic signature. Okay? So, when we wake up in the morning and we spend the first 5 to 10 minutes laying in bed, take that time to center the body and to create your entire body to be a resonating tuning fork. And how do you do that? Well, I like to call it the think resonation, because actually it's not thinking, it's directing love energy through the body. Yet in order for us to get our brain around that, we think about it. So envision laying there and envision drawing through every ounce of love that you can in your body. And how do you do that? Well, you think about things you love. You embody, let your soul, let your cells just begin to resonate with love for something. Think of a person, envision a pet, envision a family, envision the planet. What is it you love? Now, gang, this is real important, because how do we stave off some of the horrible weather and horrible earth changes that are imminently coming? We cannot change them. We can only dial back on some of their severity. And we are being shown that we have this capability and this power by the angelic realm that is trying to get our flippin' heads in the game, that we are incredible electromagnetic broadcasters and we can manifest a lot more in this world than just, I want a fancy red car and I want a great big house and I want. How about I want to be able to breathe air? How about that one? That's a really good manifestative motivator. I want my kids to be able to actually have clean drinking water. How about that one? So laying in bed for 5 to 10, go 15 if you can, and envision and embody and truly feel, trigger those chemicals in the brain that allow you to feel ultimate peaceful love. And this is going to be a challenge because your brain's going to want to say, okay, yeah, love, but what about your bills? Yeah, love, but you got the stuff to do today. Gang, if we could all, 8 billion of us, do this for 5 to 10 minutes a day, we would put out into the ether structure such a calming, even vibration that it would stabilize the upper atmosphere. It would stabilize those upper clouds so that we wouldn't be getting these dramatically insane weather patterns that just drop a ton of tornadoes everywhere, like a sci-fi movie. I swear to God, if a tornado starts dropping sharks someplace, I am doing a special 2-hour podcast. And I don't put it past. I do not put it past these weird weather patterns to create some kind of ultimate vacuum and throw sharks every place. I mean, it rained frogs in the Old Testament. It rained frogs. So something picked those frogs up and flung them. And God works with what God made. So that's weather somehow. Weird stuff. Anyway, our bodies, when we focus love through our bodies, gang, and it's literally as simple as that. You don't have to go through a great big ritual. I mean, you can if you want to. If that's what it takes to get your brain to come offline long enough to just be able to sink into the emotion of love. And this is hard because we want to get up and read the newspaper and get our coffee going and whatever. Yet, listen, take that, I'll do it with you. Take that 5 to 10 minutes every morning and go 10 if you can. And just think about everything you love. If you have to envision something in your life that doesn't even exist yet, like sitting in the perfect dream cabin or being with the perfect mate and how that would feel, whatever it takes for you to turn your entire cellular structure into a resonating tuning fork for the vibration of love for 5 to 10 minutes, that vibration will go into the ethers and it will connect with others. So think about this. We in America are on pretty standardized work schedules. So if everybody's getting up at 5 or 6 a.m., at 5 or 6 a.m., there's going to be a love reset in the country. For those getting up that work the night shift, at 3 p.m., there's going to be a love reset in the country. And this is also going to change the ethers and how people deal with one another, because agitation in the ether structure actually creates angry people. It creates angry weather. And you'll notice the more chaotic that we've gotten over here, and I'm just speaking about the United States. The whole world is pretty chaotic right now. As we've been chaotic in the USA, our USA weather has just spiked into insanity, into sci-fi biblical proportions. And yes, of course, that has to do with global changes that we've been talking about for nearly an hour. Yet we can augment that, gang. I don't want to say we can change it. We can't change it. We kind of made our bed and we're laying in a consciousness exercise right now. So the exercise is, how do we lessen the effect that would kill a species? That's the consciousness exercise. When we are focusing love through the body, the physical effects are as follows, gang. The love vibration allows the body to release chemistry in the brain that is very good for certain hormonal aspects of the body. The pituitary gland takes a big rest. The thyroid just goes, oh, thank you. The endocrine system, which can also get, the adrenals can get really whipped up, and we can burn out our adrenals on, people who struggled with meth addiction. They burn those adrenals out. You drink too much coffee, you're going to burn out your adrenals and be super tired. Those adrenals help us, and this is broad brush strokes of anatomy, gang, but they help us manage our daily output of energy. So the love vibration, when we give just 5 or 10 minutes every day, in the morning to this, I would love to see everybody at night when you go to bed. It's harder at night because we're processing the daytime crud. Yet if you get really good with your practice of doing this for 5 to 10 minutes in the morning, take it into the evening at that point. Take it into the evening. And if you can actually meditate and draw that love through the body for 8 minutes before you go to bed, we're also going to offset this incredibly destructive energy that we're putting off during the day. We're going to offset it by love at night, okay? And the body is going to respond to this because when we are entering the love vibration, and again, gang, this is a scientifically proven vibration. When we enter the love vibration into the body, the first thing it does is begin to heal the body. And how does it do that? Well, it triggers the brain. The brain, once it feels the love vibration, begins to release all kinds of happy chemicals. And those happy chemicals roll through the bloodstream. And as I was saying, it affects the areas of the body that want to help heal itself. When we're sleeping, the body goes into a natural reparative state. So certain hours of our sleep cycle are spent dealing with the internal organs. Certain hours are spent dealing with the brain and the body and the flesh and all these different spots in ourself. So when we actually are drawing the love vibration through our bodies and creating our bodies to be a tuning fork for this vibration, then we are continually in a state of accelerated healing with the body. This actually helps with the aging process. The reason that we age is partially because we're on a gravity-based environment, and that creates friction, which creates inflammation in the body, and that inflammation creates dis-ease. We come out of ease into the dis-ease, and then with that, we've got these ends, those telomeres on the end that I talk about all the time, that are on the ends of our chromosomes. They start to shorten up. Well, obviously, I don't think humans are really designed to live forever. That's just it's not our soul cycle. It's not our learning cycle. Yet we can really dramatically affect the type of life that we live or the quality of life in our aging process by throwing that love vibration and embodying it within the self every day. For those of you that are practitioners, Reiki folks, cranial sacral, reflexologist, acupressure, whatever, I do Tibetan bowls when I'm working on healing with human beings or animals or whatever. when we are in that healing process, it's so important for those of you that are practitioners to understand that our job is to literally embody love as we go into that process, because that love vibration then comes not only through our body, but it moves through the hands and it moves into the client. And our love vibration, again, love is love. It doesn't distinguish. Love is love. So sending that love vibration through the body of another, then like attracts like in spiritual physics, right? Then that person's body picks up that love vibration. They relax. The brain starts making these happy chemicals. That love vibration is absorbed. And in part, the happy chemicals help the absorption of the love vibration. And I'm making some really big, broad brushstrokes. I will do a show specifically on the anatomy of the love breakdown in the body. Yet this is more what actually happens with us in our body as we are existing and putting this love out there. And what's so phenomenal about that is that when we have this meditative time, when we have times of volunteering, we put love out. Love vibration saturating the body in order to create the happy chemicals that then create the chemical bridges for the love vibration to get into the cells to then release in the midst of the cells through a protein communication with the DNA. The DNA can then release healing elements because it feels safe enough for the body to heal. Okay? And hear this, the body doesn't want to heal when it's under trauma. Of course it doesn't. The body is busy trying not to die. It's very busy trying to remain in a space of being hypervigilant. And so all of its resources are on meerkat duty, peeking up over the edge going, oh my God, I've got to try to save my butt here. The body will open up the lower rungs of DNA when it is vibrationally triggered, because as we know, the lower 10, I call it the lower 10, out of the 12 strands of DNA, the top 12, we use about the top 2 for our physical body. And those lower 10 are then in place so that we can heal in ways that are magnificent, and we can also transcend our environment. So this is how love actually works as not only a physical chemical in the body, but a bridge physical chemical into the resonation section of metaphysics to be able to release information from the DNA that's passed back through a protein language back into the cells, and then we can actually embody the healing. So this is why you see people who, when they first fall in love, they look really young. Have you ever noticed that? It's a trip. People become just looking like insane superheroes when they fall in love, because that rush of energy, and also it has to do with the love vibration connection going through the chakral points of the body, those chakral points being able to create a figure 8 of recycled energy with another. Remember, humanity, we are a naturally empathic species. That's why we are tremendously studied by a lot of our off-world cousins, because that's a cool attribute about being human. So when we embody love, and we allow the brain to trigger the sensations of love in the chest, and we allow that heart chakra to open up and just channel love. And then we take that love into the world by volunteering. Do something nice for somebody that they're not even expecting, that you're not going to benefit from. Just do something fabulous for someone. This is going to enter in for you a tremendous opportunity to have that love vibration literally trigger the healing components in the body. So if you are doing the love meditation and you're envisioning and embodying loving your spouse, loving the world, loving your child, loving what you do, loving your pet, it doesn't matter. Just let yourself sink into that perfect moment of love and feel it physically. You will resonate like a tuning fork. And not only will the physical body heal, if you do it at night, you're going to leave your organs, your blood, your flesh, your bones, your brain, you're going to leave that in an incredible resonated state to regenerate in the most efficient way possible. Now, I want you to think about something, because we're running out of time and we're already over time, but I have got to finish this thought in spite of, I give my engineer a heart attack every week. This poor human being. Sorry, man. It is what it is. This is the kind of summary on this, is that when we are working with the body in this way. And we go to bed at night, and we go to bed with our brains racing, and we're stressed out, and we're reading world news on our phone or whatever before bed. We are not allowing the consciousness to settle into a calm space of loving release. And when we are not allowing that loving release, we're not allowing the body to fully heal at night. Okay? And look at how many of us struggle with all of the EMF saturation in our world. We struggle with sleep because there's so much EMF everywhere, distracting everybody from sleep patterns. So we don't allow, especially we that are practitioners and healers, we don't allow the body to fully go into a love space. And then when we wake up in the morning, we're just jumping out of bed and hitting the shower instead of bringing in the love for the day. If you've got to get up out of bed and sit in the sunshine or grab a crystal or just hold your mug of coffee or whatever your routine is, yet allow the brain to simply embody prosperity, love, anything that makes you feel safe, and just be in that space. Make sure, and it's going to get easier the more you do it, okay? Because if we can actually get a command over having stillness in the body, in the mind, in the breath, then we will create the eradication of dis-ease. We will create, to a degree, sometimes we have lessons that we learn through having dis-ease in our life. Yet overall, the healing components are going to be much more efficient for the body. And the two organs, there's actually three organs that respond the most readily to the energetics of the love frequency. Are you ready for this? Not surprising. Our heart, because it's an electromagnetic organ, our heart is regenerated the most as a muscle sitting behind the heart chakra as we channel the love energy through the body. The brain also is cleared out. So if you struggle with bouts of depression, or if you're an empath out there that's really struggling with world events, allow that incredible love to wash through that liquid wobbly thing called the brain up there. That's going to help. And the pituitary gland also, really, really benefits from the love vibration. And running a close fourth is our liver, gang. Our liver is the organ that actually, if you study Chinese medicine, anger is stored in the liver. So if we're running love through the body at night, then we're going to help release this anger in that liver center. And the liver is a filter organ. So if we're filtering everything in our body through anger, just think about that. That doesn't take a big description to explain that. So let's get into the habit of running the resonant ability of love through the body 5 to 10 minutes before you really get up and running in your day, and 5 to 10 minutes before you go to sleep. And those of you that have sleep issues, this is going to help your sleeping because it takes the brain offline to feel comfort and ease. And once we feel comfort and ease, we fall asleep. We don't fall asleep when we're hypervigilant. And for many people who are taking, sleep aids, that knocks us offline completely in a different way. And some people need those sleep aids. So, however, let's give this a shot, gang. Let's give it a shot. So that's a lot of information. I'm going to wrap it up. We're way over time. Thank you for hanging in there with me for this entire show. This has been just huge. Next show, we're going to be talking about geographic areas on the earth that are conducive to certain types of healing, to certain types of spiritual gifting. We're going to be looking at the geography of the earth and what those areas are helpful for if you are a practitioner living somewhere or you just want to travel someplace, as far as the healing components, because our earth is a giant healer herself. She is a giant healer. So we're going to be talking all about that. And we're going to also I've got a surprise topic for you next week. It's a complete surprise. I don't want to ruin it, so I'm not even going to have a spoiler. But let's just say it has to do with wide-reaching ideals coming into reality. Okay, so that's your spoiler for next week. And gang, remember, I'm launching my Ascension Tour coming up on September 8th. Our first stop is going to be Portland, Oregon at Unity in Portland. So hit my website up at ascensiontour.com. We now have the website up, and check out where I'm going to be. I hope to see you guys there. There's going to be so many amazing, uplifting channeled messages from the angelic realm there. And also, I'm going to have the opportunity, there's going to be maybe 20, 25 folks that are going to be randomly chosen for readings there, and that's so healing for everybody who's there. So let's help build this light nation and this new world together. Check out the Ascension Tour schedule. I'd love to see you all there. And thanks for hanging in there with me for this minute and almost 10 seconds of time, or hour and 10 seconds. I wish it was a minute and 10 seconds. I will work on my time condensation abilities, and we'll see what we can do for you. I love you all. Have a tremendous, tremendous week putting love into the environment. Be mindful of your environment. Become part of the largest planner array on the planet. Let us uplift this realm with love. I love you. And I will see you next week. Take care.